exposing them to risk of deportation.
We're doing immigration actions all throughout the country. We're not saying we're going to favor one area over another. We're all over the country, in every neighborhood, in every city, and you're going to see an expansion of that.
The Supreme Court today permitted the Trump regime to revoke temporary legal protections granted to over 500,000 immigrants under the Biden administration.
Like I just said, we're going to increase the teams greatly. So you're going to see more teams on the streets you've never seen before. You're going to see more worksite enforcement than you've ever seen in the history of this nation.
What if I told you the Supreme Court just quietly handed Trump the green light for a sweeping political move that could uproot 500,000 lives? Stick around, because this isn't just about one decision. It's part of a chain reaction with huge consequences. You won't believe how far this plan goes. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
If we can't find them in the community, we're going to find them at the work site. So we're going to flood the zone, and in sanctuary cities will get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the neighborhoods, more worksite enforcement, because we're going to get the bad guy. We got sanctuary cities, or I said, we're going to flood the zone. If we can't arrest a bad guy in the jail, one agent arrests a bad guy in the jail, in the safety and security of the jail, which is safer for the officer, safer for the alien, and safer for the community, okay, you're going to force it in the community to find. If you want to make it difficult for us, we'll do it. It'll take more time, it's less efficient, but we're not going to stop until we find that guy.
The Supreme Court has pulled off what feels like the legal version of a midnight heist. They approved a Trump administration push to end temporary protections for over 500,000 immigrants, people who've spent years building lives, families, and careers here in the U.S. You know, those small, unimportant things like contributing to the economy, paying taxes, or, I don't know, being human beings. This decision came with a split vote, but the sound of dissenting voices, like Justices Jackson and Sotomayor, isn't nearly loud enough to drown out the chaos it might cause. Let's back up a second. The program in question here is Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, which is meant to shield immigrants from countries ravaged by war, natural disasters, or other crises. It's not just a free pass. These people are carefully vetted and allowed to stay temporarily, though many have been renewing their status for decades.
To live and work in the US on a temporary basis. The order, which lacked an explanation, noted that Justices Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sonia Sotomayor, the court's brief order granted an emergency request from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, effectively halting a program that allowed 532,000 individuals from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. In her dissent, Jackson criticized the court for failing to consider the profound impact of stripping away legal protections for such a large group of people.
Imagine you've lived here legally for 20 years, raised kids who are citizens, and suddenly Uncle Sam bursts into your living room to say, "Time's up, pack your bags." That's essentially what's happening. We're not just talking about a handful of cases either. Roughly 540,000 TPS holders are affected, most from places like El Salvador, Haiti, and Honduras. According to researchers, they're parents to over 270,000 US-born children. Picture families ripped apart because a policy change turns their entire existence into a logistical nightmare. Community ties? Forget them. Jobs? Gone. And good luck explaining to your 10-year-old why their classmates don't have to leave. Justice Jackson called this decision a failure of common sense, while Sotomayor warned that it disregards basic human dignity. But let's not pretend this is about common sense. This is the first domino in a larger strategy, a calculated move to escalate Trump's hardline immigration policies.
Though the ruling ends the Biden-era protections, affected individuals may still explore alternative options to remain in the US while their cases remain unresolved. She argued that the decision would inflict devastating consequences on hundreds of thousands of lives.
No matter the fallout, the chaos isn't a bug in the system. It's the feature. And this system? It's just warming up. If losing protections is step one, step two is even more ruthless. The State Department's restructuring plans will take this chaos and fast-track it. Stay tuned. This roller coaster hasn't hit its steepest drop yet. The Supreme Court's decision was just the opening act. Now, Trump's administration is rolling out part 2 of this political drama, a State Department shuffle that's less about diplomacy and more about deportations. They're creating what they're calling a remigration office. Sounds fancy, right? But really, it's a giant deportation machine, complete with its own assembly line to get people out of the country as fast as possible. Here's how it works. The new office will take over the duties of the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, an agency that once upon a time focused on helping refugees and managing humanitarian programs. Instead, this reorganized unit will track, repatriate, and even run so-called voluntary return programs. Except, how voluntary can it be when the walls are closing in? This plan cuts out the heart of what the State Department used to stand for. It's not about diplomacy anymore. It's about streamlining deportations alongside DHS and ICE. And it's not just immigrants feeling the heat. More than 3,400 State Department staff could lose their jobs, all thanks to Trump's cost-cutting focus on American interests. They're axing over 300 offices in the process. Marco Rubio, who's leading this shakeup, claims it'll make things more efficient. But efficient at what cost? The goal here isn't improved service. It's taking resources away from refugee support to speed up deportation timelines. It's like turning an ambulance service into a repo agency. Stephen Miller, Trump's top immigration bulldog, has had his fingerprints all over this plan. Miller's already got a track record of hating everything the PRM stood for. He spent years railing against its ties to pro-migration groups. Now, he's finally turning his speeches into policy. If this sounds extreme, that's because it is. The remigration concept comes straight from far-right European playbooks, where it's code for mass deportations. Trump borrowed not just the term but the entire mentality, calling immigrants a migrant invasion and pledging to send them home. All this ties back to the Supreme Court decision. Together, they're two sides of the same strategy: destabilize immigrant communities, cut off protections, and then ramp up enforcement with military-like precision. And step 3, it's coming. Sanctuary cities, you're next. This isn't just about immigration anymore. It's about rewriting America's identity. Decisions like these send a clear message. The government values deportation quotas over diplomacy or even basic humanity. Take Stephen Miller's goal to push ICE arrests to 3,000 daily, a number that turns deportation into a cold, brutal statistic. And with 500 sanctuary jurisdictions on notice, no community is off limits. But what does this mean for the country's future? Are we okay with a system willing to destabilize families for political points? Let us know your take in the comments, because, believe me, this story is far from over.